evening and welcome to the latest in the mini Spotlight series. I'm Lauris Lambergs. I'm the co-president of the Latvian American Chamber of Commerce. It's my pleasure and honor to welcome you to this 10th and last for 2024 in the mini Spotlight series. We're really excited about this one, given it's the last of this cycle. We decided to do it a little bit differently. First of all, we extended it from 60 minutes to a full 90 minutes. We're including a full 20-minute networking session at the end. So if you've got the bandwidth back in the States, you want to hang in there. It's a wonderful opportunity to get to know some of the other people who are on this webinar. We're also thrilled to be able to bring you not just 2 or 3 guests today, but a full 5. And as we thought about the entire mini Spotlight series and what we're trying to do to make this both interesting and actionable and educational all at the same time, is we decided to look at the event that took place in the Latvian embassy, an event that the Chamber ran in collaboration with LIAA, with the Latvian embassy, focused on the US and Latvian Defense Drone Symposium. We had over 75 attendees, far exceeding our expectations. And it was really a watershed event for us as an organization, as I think well for the embassy and the people who are joining us here today. Given what's happened in the last 3 years, starting with the Ukrainian war and just in the last couple weeks, global security is a very fluid thing, I think, as we all have a better understanding. And the time is perhaps not better to be thinking really seriously, both on a macro scale as well as a micro scale. What can we be doing, whether in the US or in Latvia, to support our common security? And we're thrilled to have some absolutely top-notch guests here to sort of bring the perspective from a variety of viewpoints across the Latvian and American ecosystem. So let me give you a quick overview of who we'll be hearing from today. I'll share a couple of quick thoughts and then we'll get down to it. So it is my honor to be able to bring with us the following 5 guests, starting with the Latvian State Secretary from the Ministry of Defense, Aivars Puriņš. He'll be followed by the Head of Defense and Public Safety of Latvijas Mobilized Telephones, or LMT, Kaspars Pollaks. Then we have a leading business developer for Origin Robotics, which is one of the leading drone technology companies coming out of Latvia, Rihards, Bergs. And then we have the CEO of Tehnika, as well as the chair, or president, I should say, of the Latvian Confederation of Industry Development, Normunds, Bergs. They're all here in person at the Tehnika studios. And then we'll be joined remotely by George Straubs, who is the LACC defense expert and co-regional director of the Washington, D.C. area for us. The LACC executive director, Kristīne Twidwell, is also remote. She'll be handling the interview with George as he gives an overview from his perspective, given his 30 years experience in the U.S. defense industry. But before we kick off, I guess I wanted to share a couple of observations from my perspective alongside Jan Bergs and sort of what we've seen over the last year and change through these mini spotlights. And I guess in the spirit of, in the US, we're a couple weeks past Thanksgiving, and it is the season to be grateful. And I guess the timing of talking about security and defense really should give us all pause to be grateful for the fact that the individuals who are here today, but also hundreds, if not thousands more of whom are out there risking life and limb to keep us safe. So, on behalf of the organization, I thank our guests as well as those who do make our safety and security possible. I would also say that one of the missions of the mini Spotlight series has been to take, and highlight, some of the best and brightest Latvian business ideas and firms and people, and to bring them to you. And it's been an absolutely thrilling 10 webinar series. We're excited to be able to continue this into 2025 because I think we've got more to tell. The number of people watching these has tripled over the past couple of years, so I think we're finding our voice and we're finding an auditorium for this, for lack of a better word. So, my ask of you, those of you who are watching, is if you hear a story, if you hear an individual here today or in the future, and you think you've got someone in your network, someone that you know that might be of interest, that might be able to help them, I ask you to do so. Reach out to us at the Chamber. Reach out directly to the individuals who are speaking. But it's only doing that we're going to make this organization stronger and better, as well as help, I think, what is all a common goal, which is a safer, stronger, and wealthier Latvia and America at the same time. So with that said, I want to take a quick moment to thank those who have made this event possible. Our partners in this, first and foremost, the Latvian Exporters Association, the Red Jackets. In particular, I'd like to thank Edita Šipko and Kristīne Smilga, who are here tonight, Līva Sturmana, who has moderated a number of these events, as well as Kaspars Roškauns, who is the Red Jackets board chair and has been a long-standing supporter and friend of the Latvian American Chamber of Commerce. I'd also like to thank the Latvian Investment and Development Agency, Ilza Mičula and Toms Viedriņš in particular, as well as the new LIAA head, Ieva Jagar, with whom we met yesterday and who's committed to furthering and deepening the relationship that we at the Chamber have with LIAA and again, try to do the right thing for Latvian companies and American companies and develop that relationship. Last and not least, I'd also like to thank Tehnika, Jānis Bergs, Normunds, and the great team here in the studio, without whose help, none of this would be possible. So, all that said, let's get into the meat of today, and it's, again, my honor to have our first guest, again, be the Latvian State Secretary for the Ministry of Defense, Aivars Puriņš. He was the key speaker at the event that we held in Washington in October. The next 15 minutes we'd like to spend more in a friendly social conversation. But I guess I would ask Mr. Puriņš if you could just share, when you think about it from the perspective of the Latvian Ministry of Defense, where is your attention going? Certainly in the last 3 years, I suspect it's developed and changed. What's important for us to know about what the Latvian MOD is, what's top of mind for you all?
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Nice to be here, actually, and it's a nice setting here. And then thanks for all the people who organize this and keeps doing it. So it's a first time here, so it's great to be here. It's obviously the obvious answer is the focus is hard security on us. Looking and following very heavily all the daily events in the Ukraine and trying to figure out how to make our security. How do we make ourselves more secure and clearly there is a full support of the country and the government behind the defense improvement effort. And now we are already looking next year 3.5% of GDP invested into defense capabilities. So there is quite a sizable money being allocated. And what we can see out in the world now, obviously this kind of level of defense investments will need to be sustained. Having said that, we have kind of to make this sustainable and kind of reinforcing this defense investment. Clearly, there is twofold focus and tasks to us as well. Besides the point to build our capabilities, build our security, is how do we build with these resources, the local capabilities, industrial capabilities that can support our defense capabilities and thereby make us more secure, more sustainable. So, for good or bad, there hadn't been a strong industrial base, hard industry left over, over the last decades. So we really need to kind of boost it up. And the second thing is, which comes with Ukraine war and the current days, is obviously the technology. It's not just building simple things. You need to go into the more advanced things to be more advanced. And what happens in Ukraine, daily shows each step the opposition overtakes you with a new technological twist. The way we try to approach is, we look for our capabilities. We try to find these Western partners that could bring in the technologies, but then combine with local Latvian companies, industries. That is one track, and there is already multiple cases we can look into, and one is we building our own APCs, armored personnel track, with the help. There is a very strong Finnish-Latvian industrial participation already, and it has grown only 2-3 years. In the time of 2-3 years, it has grown tremendously, and there is new projects on that. But the second track we're trying is we have to kind of provide and give a funding for the R&D. to the local. Here, SAF, SAF, and then there's many drone operators. And obviously, the drone has been mentioned by you. The drone is like a name of the day. You know, when you look in Ukraine, that's kind of logical focus, but it's the frontal focus. But then is, you know, counter drone. You know, how do you air defense? How do you do? We haven't talked or draw our attention at the sea. You know, sea drones and basically all what we can talk about optimization, about robotization of the capabilities. I'm not even talking how do we, you know, bring in the artificial intelligence. These are all things we want, you know, the local support the local minds to, you know, build their thinking and technologies, which could be turned into useful capabilities, and which then also could be something they could be, you know, collaborating. And we are trying very heavily to support collaboration within the EU because there's special programs. But I think there is untapped potential to find these links with the US, because obviously US is a strategic partner. We like to have the US soldiers here. We are thankful for that, but I think not just that. We need to build a multiple level cooperation with the United States, and economic cooperation is so much there to be built, and not just in defense, you know, industry area across the board, but as you know, we talk on the defense, that would be a great focus if we could find the links and build it. And I think that there is multiple companies which are already, besides, even without any support or kind of added boost, has been building the links where we have what we are here. SAF is trying to build these links. There's a drone producers who is already factually, you know, situated on both coasts. So there is already good examples we should be kind of building on. Yep. So this is kind of, if I can run shortly.
That's interesting, because for those of us who don't work in a government setting, you know, we're not as familiar with, and how does Latvia approach United States, you know, with its 2 million people versus 350 million, where, you know, is it government to government? To your point, is it private industry to private industry? Is it a joint effort? How does that conversation
Obviously,
take
for
place?
us as a government, it's the natural counterpart is trying to find the governmental institutions. Firstly, obviously, we talk with Pentagon and etc., different offices there. But obviously, the Pentagon has set up a different R&D and industrial support structures. So we should be, as our offices should be looking into them and trying to find the connection points and we recognize, I mean, we are 2 million people, as you said. That's, you know, not even a city in US. So, you know, to make yourself interesting, to make yourself relevant, and we should be trying to find the ways. And we really, I'm myself supporting. We shouldn't be talking only to Washington. We should be looking across the United States and reaching out, you know, talking with politicians, but also trying to and you mentioned the symposium in embassy, but a few days before that, we were visiting Seattle, you know, Washington State. And was meeting multiple industrial and they had their own, even, you know, all they had all their own ideas how they want to develop, you know, not drones, but, you know, automatic systems and etc. And so much, you know, initiatives. Obviously, it's a hotbed of also huge technological companies, technology companies. But I was kind of meeting over the day with different people, and I thought there could be opportunity. There could be opportunity for us trying to build on each kind of on the other coast, and they were particularly interested. And I met a number of people there in Seattle who were, you know, who cared about Europe. So that's, we should be kind of catching up these people and talking with them and meeting them.
Exactly. And just as a reminder to those watching, if you want to ask a question, please put it into the chat. We're able to follow that, and we've got Mr. Puriņš here probably for another 8 or 9 minutes, so feel free to lob questions in. I would ask this. So you mentioned the Patria, which is that all-terrain vehicle. You mentioned the drones, where Latvia has been one of the leaders. Did that happen organically, i.e. was it an independent business, a private business that developed the drone, that developed the vehicle, or was it a public-private relationship where it was both the government and a private company or more? How does that come together?
Two different cases, yeah. The vehicle was fully government, so the two governments, Finnish and Latvian, came together and thought, this is something we should be kind of putting our heads together and putting a project together, a new type of platform, and luckily it was a good platform. So there's already not only 2 countries but already 4 countries subscribing to that platform, and through the contracting and deal making, they set up an office in Latvia, and they have built a cluster already of companies. And this is like a good case study. Once you start one place, it starts to kind of like a virus, healthy virus. It starts to kind of infect and generate additional capabilities and building the other things, industrial capabilities around it. On the drones, I think there's we have been lucky on a kind of business initiative, and if you look in Latvian drone industrial, I think it's already more than 10 years, even more, quite. I mean, 20 years back we could say there was lone wolves starting to build and play with drones, and they have moved on and sold the companies and etc. But there's been a healthy self-development. There's been a little bit kind of support from the, maybe as always it could be done more from let's say government or a defense ministry and etc. But it had grown, and we are trying to catch up and support and grow it further. Especially Ukraine's war is terrible, but it's a laboratory of technologies, especially of the drones, and there is back and forth, and we try as we can facilitate the lessons learned from that they could be translated and held into new products in Latvian companies, but then that could be again kind of tested and exploited. Supporting war effort in Ukraine, but also kind of getting good new lessons, and we trying to kind of, that's been a kind of hard focus to try to weigh how can we do even more, and that's not simple because it's a crowded market, so to say.
So I have a question from Jermaine. She was asking about dual-use technology, or technology that can be used both in a military setting as well as in a civilian. Mm-hmm. How do you, from a military ministry, Ministry of Defense perspective, do you care about dual use, or is all you really focus on, the military aspects of that sort of?
That's a good question, and I think it's dual use is the name of the day, because I think that's a well accepted assumption, not assumption, but should be accepted that these days kind of civilian technology development has moved up front the military side. And if you talk about drones, that's fully dual use. And if you look, there is such amazing uses of the drones, logistic deliveries, different kind of service drones and etc. Which obviously, if you put your mind to it, could be used as a military and vice versa. So if you look at the drone industry, it's a dual use fully, and I think maybe with the war suddenly it has more prominence, the application, military application of it. But I think it should be kickstarting also much wider civilian use of the drones. I would expect more and more kind of. I just that was it. Old or new, the Amazon finally has got some clearance for actual deliveries of the product. Yeah, it's not just anymore a concept. It actually could be happening. And this kind of which is obviously you could find military use for that as well, or it has been used already in military ways. But yep. It's a clear commercial application. So dual use is, I think. That is, you look at the technologies and both. obviously there is kind of securities aspects involved. You should be careful not to get, we get into hard place with dual use when you start to think, okay, within a transatlantic area is fine, but when you start to think where some of those technologies come into, it's
need to be more careful.
Somewhere in Asia direction, and then really you have to be careful, aren't you? Kind of trying to do good thing, actually hurting yourself in the long term.
So this is probably not an easy question to answer in the couple minutes we have left, but you had mentioned Latvia's dedicating 3.5% roughly of its GDP to defense in the next year's budget that was just looked at in SIMA. So that makes us, one of the leaders, certainly, I think, in the NATO alliance. Certainly, Eastern Europe, I think, learned its lesson from 50 years of Soviet subjugation. But as you think about the money that's being dedicated to defense, is it being used to build up an industrial capability, a military industrial capability within Latvia? Is it being used simply to buy stuff made in the US or Germany or England? Roughly, is that something you guys take into consideration as you think about how to spend that money, right?
That's as I said, it's we have a kind of a huge push and demand or ask that it's not just spent, that it's creates, and obviously there is no this APC or this vehicle. It's a good example that by getting these vehicles we build this local production and build capabilities, which then can be further be a future base of some future development. But when we look at some major projects, we really are asking that these providers are building cooperations with the Latvian industry, or if there is none, make them, create them. That is which has a downside. We might not be able to buy exactly on the time we want, because it involves much harder conversations with the sellers, because obviously they're interested to give you the kit and get the pay. And that's complicates a little bit, work on our side. But we held the view that in the long term it should be able to pay back. It should just simple economical, returns, but sustainment of the capabilities and building new next generation, so to say, future capabilities. We would be more capable, and we would be more interesting to, let's say, US, that we have capabilities to cooperate with, that we are not just a user of capabilities, that we can be talking on an equal basis, and we could be building some partnerships with. For this matter, with US companies or US researchers, and we could be, an interesting partner. You ask yourself, how do we make ourselves interesting? We should be, having something to be interesting. Either we have to make a beautiful animation film or something. We need to make ourselves interesting to be, relevant.
When Latvia needs to build better mousetraps, is the expression. How do we create something? Doesn't have to be best at everything, but pick what you're best at and go with that.
And we need to invest in that.
Exactly. So unfortunately, we are out of time, but I would like to thank you, Aivars Puriņš, for your time here today, for the trip that you made to the U.S. in October, and for all the work that you do on behalf of Latvian security going forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So as Mr. Puriņš mentioned, he was part of a substantial delegation that came to the U.S. earlier this fall. The event that we hosted in the Latvian embassy was attended not only by a number of visiting Latvian dignitaries and entrepreneurs, but also had half of the participants were from the US, which is something that we're very proud of, that we were able to get a substantial amount of American participants at these events, because to the extent that we at the Chamber can facilitate introductions with either government officials or private industry officials, I think it's something that's important to us. And there's no better example than that of, our next guest. So Kaspars Pollaks is with Latvia's Mobilized Telephones. He is an expert in the defense and public safety realm. LMT is one of the largest telecoms, certainly in Latvia, if not the Baltics. And I know LMT is dedicating a lot of time and energy to making security and public safety one of their strongest aspects. So, Kaspar, welcome, and I guess share with us what you'd like to speak to. I know you've got a presentation for us here.
Yes, I really do, and I would like to pick up a couple of things which were mentioned by the State Secretary. So we are a perfect example of the dual use in the current security environment here in Baltics and especially Latvia. So LMT, by the core of the business, is telco operator, the oldest and largest telco operator in Latvia. But throughout the years, we have become very diverse with different new business verticals, and defense is one of them. So I hope it works. Yeah, so a couple of interesting and I think quite an important facts about Latvia. First of all, based on the OECD data, we are super consumptive on the mobile data. It means that the average Latvian citizen spends 39.12 gigabytes of the mobile data monthly on their end user device.
How much of that is Emily in Paris? Is most of it Emily in Paris? Or?
No, I think it's, yeah, it could be. But so what this actually means, it means that we have the very progressive end user who is used to the devices, who is used to the using the internet. And we have infrastructure in place, which is most important. And if we are talking about defense topic today, then it gives us an opportunity to work with that capability and in a dual use approach, adapt it for the defense needs. Yeah. So the history of LMT started in 1992 when when the company started as the pure telecommunication business company. And today we have grown significantly, and as I said, today we are extremely diverse group of companies, one of the largest enterprises in Latvia. And as we see in the picture, so LMT Defense is one of the distinct verticals and one of the departments within the large LMT company. Besides that, we do a lot of different things. Throughout the years, LMT has acquired a couple of daughter companies like LMT Retail and Logistics. So these guys, they work on actually face-to-face with the customer in shops. And one of their facility, which is Technical Service Center, they are largest electronics maintenance hub in Baltics. So they have facilities in all three Baltic states, in Tallinn, in Vilnius, and in Riga, of course. Yes, and LMT Defense, as I said, we focus on defense-related software development, hardware things, communications, and very important R&D part. And throughout the years, we have learned that, and as the secretary said, the network is extremely important, especially in the defense domain. So the lowest hanging fruit for the network building, for the representation in the defense is different R&D activities, different international R&D activities, and for LMT in particular, some of those here are not purely defense related, but most of them are. These are European Defense Fund projects, so different projects, different initiatives on European Defense Fund and NATO side. We are cooperating with the partners here in the Baltics. So that's one of the innovation, I would say, directions we are systematically working on, which is defense-related participation in European Defense Fund projects. The second direction is actually quite closely linked to the US Department of Defense. So for the third year, LMT has hosted, in cooperation with Ministry of Defense and Latvian National Armed Forces, NATO Digital Backbone Experimentation. So that's the annual event. And US Department of Defense is one of the partners in that event. So we are building closer cooperation on the transatlantic level as well. And the third, which is very important, the third vertical for our R&D scope is the National R&D Program. And the main result of that is the testbed we have created in cooperation with Ministry of Defense and National Armed Forces for testing and developing 5G technology for defense. And in general, this has been throughout the years sort of an approach of LMT, not only for the military, but we really believe that seeing is believing. So that's why for testing new technologies, we have created a number of LMT test sites in cooperation with different partners, both on the industry, on the government, and on the academia side, in order to demonstrate, to showcase, to experiment with different technologies. And as I said, one of the loudest one of the most noticed ones is 5G defense test site in one of our military camps in Ādaži, just next to the largest in Baltics military training area, where we can do different things, different experimentations, showing different use cases for the end user, because the military, for perspective of client, is very conservative. The military guys, they like, green radio stations, and you have to really work on in order to persuade the end user to believe in the technologies as the 5G, for example, because that's something quite new in the domain. And this is very nice example, I think, and perfect example how Latvian Ministry of Defense cooperates with the industry in order to make an area or place or point where ecosystem can be developed. Because LMT is not the only partner in running the show here. Every time we try to involve different partners, different companies in order to grow the ecosystem, in order to grow the representation of Latvian companies and international partners, of course. And just as an example, just after the event in Washington, D.C., we have conducted two large events related to the 5G defense test site. So one is European Defense Fund project 5G Compad demonstration in cooperation with Latvian Navy. We did demonstration of the naval use case, how different 5G technology deployment types can be used for the naval use case. And the second super large event, the largest event this year for my team, was the NATO Digital Backbone Experimentation, where several companies, including Tehnika, Origin Robotics, Latvian company Natrix, were involved in order to use them as the different technology deliverers and showcase their technology in the experiment as it was requested by the NATO. That would be it from my side. That's what we do, and as I said, we are a real dual-use telco operator.
So a couple quick questions. A lot of the projects up there are obviously European focused in nature. How can we, with our members in America, help you? You've got contacts at the Department of Defense. Are you looking for non-governmental connections as well? Or, what can we do, I guess, as an organization to help LMT and LMT Defense in particular, do what you just described, hopefully a little bit better?
Yeah, sure. So first of all is that none of innovation or technology development happens if industry is not talking with each other. Mm-hmm. Historically, if we touch upon the drone thematic, then Latvian and let's say American industry has been historically quite closely linked. As the State Secretary said, we have several companies who are already operating in both countries. We have some of the companies who have had experience in operating in the United States. And I would say that in the communication technology domain, which is our expertise, there still is an opportunity to cooperate. Mm-hmm. The very good example is we are large partner, and our large partner is Nokia. Mm-hmm. And Ericsson, obviously, because these are two vendors which we use for the normal everyday civilian customer, but as well they are our partners for the 5G test site infrastructure which we provide for military. And Nokia has one of their daughter companies in the United States, actually. Mm-hmm. So, and that's the actual example how we cooperate, and the guys from the United States are already coming to 5G defense site to help us with the setting up the mobile 5G equipment. That's the existing cooperation. Regarding the future side, so within the Pentagon, there is the Future G program, which focuses on the future telco technology development. So, and the cooperation between the Pentagon and industry has already is at the significant level. There are several test sites. The approach we do here in Latvia, there is the same approach in the United States. We have visited several of those sites, which are run by the Pentagon in cooperation with the industrial partner. So we are really open to develop this cross-transatlantic link, because what we can provide, actually comparing to United States, we are small, but we are very agile. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of practical things we can do faster than maybe in the United States. We can do the synchronization of frequencies, for example, the legislative part, faster. Our cooperation between Ministry of Defense and Armed Forces is, I'm pretty much sure, faster. Mm-hmm. And there is a lot of things we can solve with our agility.
Yep, if you can't be bigger, you better be faster. So,
exactly.
Kaspar, thank you very much, and this was very educational. I know when I'm here in Latvia, I live in Salkrasti, which is very close to Ādaži, so I'm grateful for the work you're doing, as well as the many hundreds of NATO soldiers in there as well. So thank you again, and
thank you.
Glad you were able to join us.
Thank you.
Thank you. So as we go to our next guest, one thing again that we try to bring in these mini spotlights is a variety of voices. So governmental, large, well-established Latvian entities that have significant ties into a government. But we also like to talk about smaller, more startup, successful entrepreneurial stories. And our next firm here, Origin, is a great example of it. Kaspar has mentioned that Origin was involved in one of the recent programs that they ran, and I'm glad to be joined today here by Rihards, who is the head of business development for Origin. He's going to tell us a little bit about what they do, and I think this is a great example of a very specific, agile place where Latvia can again be among the best in the world and do it in a convincing way. So Rihards, welcome, and I'm glad to hear a little bit about Origin.
Yes, good evening from Riga, Latvia. Thank you so much for having us. I think I'll get straight to the presentation, give you a small insight of the company, how it started, what we do, and why we do it, the most important thing. So yeah, Origin Robotics actually started 2 years ago, but our roots in the drone industry is much longer. So we've been in the drone industry for more than a decade. And firstly, it was a commercial product. It was a company called AirDog. We're the world's first autonomously flying target tracking drone. We successfully launched the company on Kickstarter, sold 3,000 units. Time going on, we sold the company to a US-based company. And then for some years, we didn't know actually what to do. And when the war in Ukraine started, we understood that we need to get back the old team, the smart guys, the engineers, and do what we do the best, and protect our country and our allies as well with our solutions. So that's how Origin was born. And also a small insight about our main product, which is called Beak. Beak is already battlefield proven airborne weapon system, as we call it now. It's no longer just an ISR drone, as we are working on a precision guided munition, which will be implemented on this carrier. The main idea of this is to actually disrupt the market of extremely expensive missiles and bringing this capability to smaller armies, smaller countries such as Latvia, to be able to afford such capabilities for a smaller cost and achieving the same results as here. And yeah, the system was made constantly getting feedback from soldiers, from the places where this type of solution is needed the most. So this is not an engineering product that engineers think what is needed. This is actually, everything is built what is needed by the soldiers and the people that use them. So it's been quite a lot of work for these 2 years, and we have accomplished a lot in these 2 years, actually bringing a prototype and now a ready product to the market and actually being battlefield tested and battlefield proven already and used where it's needed the most at this point of time.
How does that work? So battlefield proven, so at some point Origin went, I assume, to the Ukrainian government somehow, and they're implementing it. Is the vision for Origin to be primarily focused for hot areas of war like Ukraine, or is there, again, a dual-use technology? We've talked about that a lot here today. Is the vision that you'd like to get more into that world, but given the reality of the moment, you have to be focused on Ukraine and other
Exactly,
areas?
that is the thing, and we are right now focusing on where it's needed the most, and it can be used as an ISR drone for public safety as well. But the main capability and the main value proposition it is bringing, it is the precision striking capability. So therefore, we're using mostly for military purposes, and our main mission is to protect countries such as Ukraine, and also the closest countries such as Baltic states and countries that are in the danger at this point of time.
And did you do all this just yourselves, or do you work collaboratively with other either Latvian firms or Baltic firms, Ukrainian firms? How do you have to be the best at everything to create this, or are you able to, again, collaboratively work with other people who may do the other pieces of the puzzle?
So mainly this is completely our product. Of course, such components as radio and configuration of radio, we are collaborating and in a way cooperating with companies that know that stuff more than us, because that is completely different industry. But we are implementing this knowledge and getting feedback from them how to use it and what are the best ways. As I said, the feedback that when we go to Ukraine actually ourselves and get the feedback from them, that is how we get this product so good.
Interesting. And Beak obviously it looks like it's your primary drone type. Do you envision different types for different purposes, or is it you're just going to do this one thing and do it better than anybody else?
No, yeah, we are planning on launching more products actually really soon. It's a bit of a secret at this point of time, but some new stuff is coming out pretty soon, which would be in the market of counter UAVs as well. So we're looking at both sides, and we're rapidly developing other products as well.
And when you look at, again, you mentioned 2013 was when you created the original AirDog. How much have drones changed in the last 10 years, and how much do you think they'll change even more? Like, the war has obviously really accelerated the change. Where do you envision drones being 5 years down the road?
Yeah, as you said, like the war in Ukraine completely changed the industry in drones. The development of the technology wasn't changing by months, it was changing by days, I would say. So first of all, being a startup and being able to move fast and be agile to implement new stuff, that was most of the important things to being successful as a company. And 5 years from now, probably the industry is going to be completely different again, and I see drones working in teams, which is swarming, and using AI technologies, more advanced AI technologies in drones. That is probably the future there.
Is that because Latvia just announced in the last couple of months they're going to create an AI center here in Riga, I believe. Is that something where Origin would be part of that effort to help sort of configure AI capabilities specifically for this need, or is that conversation not taking place yet?
At this point of time, we haven't thought about it. We are keeping everything in house. We are hiring quite a lot of people right now for. So basically, that Beak as well. It's not a hardware product. It's a software product involving everything: AI, machine learning, computer vision, and all that. That is where the main value comes from, and at this point of time, we're open to opportunities. We haven't discussed it yet, but surely we're gonna see.
So as you look to markets beyond Europe, the hot war in Ukraine and defending Latvia and the Baltics in particular, is the American market one that you at Origin would like to begin to look to as an export market? Are you looking for direct investment if you guys need to expand your capabilities? How does America play into your plans?
Yeah, first of all, the event, the Drone Symposium in Washington, was really great. It gave us insights on how to work actually in US, and surely we are open to working in US, but at this point of time, our main target and our main focus is Europe, the closest countries to us. And after we covered that, we are surely open on working in US as well. If it is a joint company in US or it's some other ways, but at this point of time our hands are full here in Europe. Sure. And we're mainly focusing on that. Yeah.
Gotcha. Anything else you would want to share with, again, primarily an American audience that would be important for us to know? Again, anything we can do to help? Any areas in particular that you guys would look to us for assistance?
Yeah, I would like to say that we are coming actually to US in May to exhibition Soft Week. So we're gonna have a booth there. So everybody that is coming there, welcome to visit us. And
where is that? Do you know? Where?
In Tampa, Florida.
In Tampa, Florida.
Yeah, and it's in the middle of May. It's a large exhibition. The people that are interested in military industry for sure are going to be there. So yeah, welcome to visit us and let's talk partnerships.
Excellent.
Rihards, Breicis, thank you very much. We look forward to talking to you then.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for coming.
Yep.
So before we get to our last in-person speaker here tonight, I guess those who were not able to attend the event in the Latvian Embassy in October, you get another shot. This upcoming October will be the real, I guess, the bigger Spotlight Latvia event. These normally take place every 18 months. The last one was a year ago in Boston. This upcoming October, we'll be having Spotlight Latvia in Washington, D.C., focused on, not surprisingly, security as a theme. A lot of the people, a lot of the themes, a lot of the companies we've heard from today and in previous mini spotlights will be attending. More information is to come, but jot down the 15th and 16th of October 2025. We are hoping to have the better part of 300 people come join us, which would be slightly larger than Boston. One of whom I would hope is my next guest, which is Normunds Bergs. He is CEO of Tehnika, as well as president of the Latvian Confederation of Industry Development. And forgive me if I got that order wrong.
That's okay.
Close enough.
That's okay.
Normunds is one of Latvia's most successful and well-known entrepreneurs, has been involved in a number of very successful startups and exits. He has unique perspective on, in particular, the defense security industry with his work in both LIAK as well as Tehnika. So it's my pleasure to welcome Normunds. He was a speaker at the event in October, and welcome, Normunds. So I guess what would you share, whether with your Tehnika hat on or your LIAK hat on, as we think about the crossing of technology with security? It's an area that you've known for a long time. It's changing daily, in a very rapid basis. What would be good for the people watching this to know about what you are doing or what Latvia is doing on those ends?
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yes, SAF is in a business of firstly radio communications and test and measurement in this instruments. It's spectrum analyzers, also frequency generators in high frequencies, and of course communications are important in your civil life and also in the battlefield. Mm-hmm. So in that regard, we already for 25 years in a business of equipment which could have dual use. But that Russian war in Ukraine changed practically everything, right? Because previously all defense procurements were extremely lengthy and bureaucratic, and I do believe our next speaker, George Straubs, will touched upon that, because I do believe in United States it's still extremely bureaucratic and complex. So most probably you have to convince military people for 10 years that you are still alive, you still have knowledge, and you still have products before they start to take your product and use seriously. So it's nothing happens overnight in big countries, in US in particular. But at the same time, this current war is like a very quick moving thing, and there is a much less bureaucracy like we see in the drone coalition, that it's like there are a number of companies, not only Latvian, so probably all in all it's like 150 companies from all the Europe participating now in those UK-based drone coalition tenders. And what we see, the specifications are changing like on monthly basis. You have not finished your prototype, and then it's like it's scrapped altogether, and there is a new demand, the new specs, and very few can cope with such a high speed, with such a high pace. So, and this is also important to know, that if you want to create, if you want to make defense products, you have rather deep pockets, or you have to be resilient and you can starve for a longer periods of time. So it's not easy at all, but I do believe that nowadays you can get into real business, like our friends from Origin Robotics are showing that you can do something in a span of probably 1 to 2 years. So it's all that development time is compressed now, but still it's cutthroat. It's not easy. It's not like you have something and you have business already tomorrow. It's not. It's not, and you have to go in many places. You have to show your products. You have to be very patient. So it's all process. It's not easy at all. And in that regard, of course, that Army USA exhibition and conference, and then afterwards that drone coalition event in Latvian embassy, it was very helpful. So it was like, you had in one room quite an important and knowledgeable people, and I wish that more Latvian companies had been more active working that room, because it's a Latvian habit, it's probably it's not me, I will not come and introduce myself first. I would rather, you know that better than me, that it's. But it is something what can be trained. So, and this is well, one of the reasons why we do why we do this, why Red Jackets exist, why LACC exists, all that, because we have to learn. We have to learn to be more aggressive. We have to learn to be less shy. And then I think, some success will inevitably follow.
I would agree. I think the first step to solving a problem is acknowledging you have one, and there are cultural differences between the U.S. and not just Latvia, but Europe. And for Latvian firms looking to enter the U.S. market, understanding the differences is pretty important. And to your point at the event, it does take some getting used to as a Latvian to go up to an American that you don't know and start
Are you Latvian or are you American?
Me?
Oh, yes.
I'm both.
Which one?
Both.
Oh, because that people are telling that Americans, it's like there are peach people and coconut people. So Americans are peach people, that they soft and sweet until their core, and it's extremely hard and difficult to penetrate. And then there are Latvians which are coconuts, which are hard from outside and very soft inside, right?
Once you get in.
Once you get in, and again you have to know those differences and work on them.
Correct, and it's something that with LIAA, with Red Jackets, the chamber, we try to help Latvians who come to the U.S. acknowledge and understand and overcome the peach coconut dilemma, because it is hard. It's hard for Americans, especially if you're selling. Selling is not easy, as you well know, especially into a foreign country with a different language and all that. But I think that's something that, again, our organization, to the extent we can make it easier, we try to do so. To your point, that's why we're here. But I would agree that it's hard enough as is in normal times, but the last 3 years have been much more pressure, as it were. And I guess as you think about that, tell us a little bit about LIAK, because that's a new organization that I think has come together Give us a sense of what you're looking to accomplish with that, and just it'd be good for us in our auditorium, our audience to know more.
Oh yes, LIAK is very simple. So it's Confederation of 5 manufacturing associations of Latvian industry. So it's electronics, it's IT, it's wood processing, it's metalworks, and it's chemical pharmaceutical. So we have just 5 members. But I do believe that we cover like probably 80% of manufacturing GDP of Latvia. So we represent everybody.
Yep.
And with that structure, as we are just 5 members and 5 heads of corresponding associations are also board members in association, means that we can make decisions very, very fast, and we can create our attitude to some event or to create some opinion paper pretty quick. So this is the main goal, to be partner of government, because as any industry association, of course, it's like a lobbying task. And in that regard, our main focus is defense. So also one of the reasons why today's event it's like dedicated towards defense. So it's defense, then it's education. Because again, if you want to be successful in current developing tech world, so you need a good people. So it's Latvian problem. We don't have gold, we don't have oil, we have very little coming out of the ground. So it's the people, which is our resource. So they have to be educated. So therefore it's education. And the third leg is like all in all industry development, means you need a power lines, you need a water, you need a place, you need the buildings, and so on. Those are 3 main focuses, and we are trying to be pretty much focused.
Is your emphasis mostly internal lobbying and internal, Latvian focused, or are you also looking again to expand the outreach and capability and presence of the 5 sub-organizations into places like the US, or at least elsewhere in Europe?
Yeah, of course, we are looking for new contacts, but we are not like sales agency or investment attraction agency. We rather we are participating in events, but it's like more in the form that we arrange business visits to the shows, to the conferences. So we are working based on interests of our members. Because, as every organization, every trade organization, so we are represent interest of our members. And if our members are telling we want to go to US, to USA, then we arrange the event and help in all possible ways, to bring all of them in the US and to get most from that event. It's like that. We are not that much different from LACC in that regard.
Agreed. And hopefully, I understand why the current emphasis is much more on security and defense, but hopefully we get to a point where we can focus on non-defense, non-security things. And
I do believe for foreseeable future, I believe next 5 years, defense will be in focus in all sorts of environments, in all sorts of industries. So it is defense. So if you have crazy neighbors, you have to have big guns. So
agreed, or someone else's big guns. Agreed. So Normunds, I want to thank you for your coming in. We need to pass over to Kristīne and George, because I know he shared a lot of insight about how you can organize with the U.S. government. But on behalf of our guests here in studio, State Secretary of Defense Aivars Puriņš, Kaspars Pollaks of LMT, Rihards Breicis of Origin, and Normunds Bergs of Tehnika and LIAK. I'm Lauris, Lambergs, co-president of the Latvian American Chamber of Commerce. It's been my pleasure to be with you tonight. I'm going to hand the baton over to Kristīne Vainovska Twidwell, and she's going to run the rest of today's call. Thank you, and a very early Merry Christmas to everybody.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kristīne Vainovska Twidwell, and I'm the Executive Director of Latvian American Chamber of Commerce. It is my pleasure to invite George Straubs to join me and give the remarks and information in a shortened presentation of what he shared with us back in October at the symposium in Washington, D.C. George is the Director of Marketing for Ultra PCS based out of Manhattan, Kansas, in the United States. In this capacity, he's responsible for the marketing and sales of Ultra PCS UK's weapon ejection systems, data processing, critical control systems in the USA and Canada. Prior to moving to the United States in 1986, George worked in the UK as an engineer for Hawker Siddeley Aviation, Dowdy Propellers, and Dowdy Fuel Systems, and then as a marketeer for Dowdy Weapon Systems. George has an MBA from Marymount University, based out of Arlington, Virginia, and a bachelor's from University of Hertfordshire in Hatfield, United Kingdom. He currently lives in the Washington, D.C. area. So without further ado, George, the stage is yours.
Thank you for your introduction, Kristīne. It's an honor to be here to present to all of you. As you can probably tell by my British accent, I'm British originally, and I've been here almost 40 years selling British products to the US DoD, and I hope my shared experiences will be helpful to you. So your initial ultimate objective for your product or your technology is to create or identify an operational requirement, important words, operational requirement, and make sure that it gets funded. And the way you identify that is to connect initially with warfighters that use your type of product to find out what they're using and what they need and what they want. The warfighters define needs that are validated, and that would include improvements to the way the system works in terms of what their mission is, involving threats, other emerging technologies, and also costs. Then there's a requirements team that defines the actual technical specifications of what's needed, and then also the contract requirements of how they're going to buy this and how many they're going to buy over what period. And then the last and rather important thing beyond that is ensuring that you get funding for your operation requirements. An unfunded operation requirement is going to go nowhere, but if you can get it funded by lobbying or other methods, then that's going to mean the icing on the cake and the project will move forward. And after that, the service will issue an RFI and then an RFP, which is request for information, means that they're going to look for sources sought or who's out there that can compete, and then a specific request for proposal to define how you propose for what they want. And those will be issued on a website called sam.gov, which I'll cover later on. And at the end of all that, if your proposal is successful, then you'll get a contract for qualification and production. This system or process is likely to take, for a small system, 3 to 5 years. For me, it took 11 years for a more complex system, but that was an extremely long time. And our system is now utilized on many aircraft. And that's just how long it takes if you're going for a complicated application like an aircraft application. Here are the actual specific 6 steps that I suggest that you take, and this is based on my personal experience, is first of all, you should market in person in the USA, very important. You should define what your product's advantages are over new competing products and existing products. You should identify opportunities, and there's many ways to do that. You should make sure that your company is credible, and you can do this by making sure that you look as much as possible like an American company as you can, ideally incorporating the USA. You should make sure, it's a very important thing, that you're compliant with export requirements, and also you should make sure you demonstrate your product, the appropriate subject matter experts, and there are ways to do this. There's some really great resources at the US Embassy in Latvia. There's a link there, and also the Office of the Secretary of Defense about doing business with the DoD. You can see those below. So first of all, market in person in the US. I was located here in the DC area specifically because it is the center of DoD decision making. And here are some of the organizations that are in the local area. And particularly important is the Pentagon, where there's representatives of all services there, and most funding and funding requirements run through the Pentagon. So you can get in-person meetings there once you start to know people well enough. There's also lots of soldier system requirements, locations for the Marine Corps and the Army, and also aircraft with NavAir being close by and relatively close by the US Air Force at Langley, Virginia. Let's not forget that the Latvian embassy will also be important, particularly for support for a program called the Foreign Comparative Technology program that I'll talk about later on. And if you happen to set up a small independent business in the DC area, or if you work with one of those, bigger business even, congressmen actually can lobby and secure funding for your projects, so they can be important as well, even if you have a very small company. So the way you would market in person is that make sure that you adapt well culturally to your customers. And I kind of like the analogy that Normunds made earlier this morning, where he said that Latvians are like coconuts and Americans are like peaches. And you have to become less of a coconut, more of a peach. And what that means is that you have to be a bit more friendly, a bit more sociable, be prepared to have small talk and perhaps a joke or two before the meeting, because everything is very, very informal until you get to the crunch of actually talking about programs and money. So be happy to talk to anybody. Any American will talk to you cold. And if you're in a social environment, just chat with them about anything, family, your background, what their dog's name is, etc., etc. Make sure that you use professional grade presentations and data sheets on US letter sizes, and also business cards in letter sizes, and ideally a US contact phone and email addresses. It makes it so much easier for them to contact you without any concerns that they may be dealing necessarily directly with a foreign entity and be worried about that situation compared to US. ITAR I will discuss later on in that context. So don't make your cards the wrong size or your data sheets the wrong size, because they won't fit in the standard folders and they'll just be an irritation. Make sure that you use American spelling throughout and have it checked by a professional, so there's no hint of an Eastern European slant to it. Speak good English, does not perfect by all means, because actually I haven't lost my accent, and I've found my British accent really helpful, because Americans are very helpful people. They always try to help me. And so your foreign accent actually will be an advantage, I think you'll find. Be more enthusiastic about your product than the average Latvian. Don't be so factual. Be a bit sporty about it, how great it is, and how useful it will be to the customer up front. And use enthusiasm. Don't just spell out your technology verbatim in a cool way. I've got to give thanks on these parts above, on these points above, to Geert Graudinch, who gave a webinar about a month ago, and he mentioned these very same facts. So Geert, thank you for bringing this up. I totally agree with your approach on this. Next, you've got to define your product's advantages over competing products. You mustn't be vague on this. It's got to be specific, clear advantages. And some groupings that I've used before are operational, logistics, lifecycle costs, and safety. Operational is what specifically, in terms of faster, higher data rate, higher, more powerful, is the differentiator between you and the competition? How logistically does your product eliminate the requirement for repair and support? It might be very reliable. It may not need regular maintenance. All these things are really good, but they have to be quantified. How do you lower the total life cycle costs? Because there are typically two pots of money, which is procurement costs and support costs, and they are separate. But if you can show that over the life cycle, you could get a saving with your product, even if it costs more in less than 5 years than a competing product, that's of great interest. And safety, how do you have a product that's more safe to the US operators compared to other products? All that's important, and the other topics are also important. So please be specific and define that very clearly. So your first action, and this is really, really straightforward. you have got probably hundreds of stakeholders that you will have to contact in the period that you are promoting your product, and they'll have different roles. And it's really, really important to identify those stakeholders, which is no mean feat at all. I have had 500 stakeholders from my initial product, and I actually ended up speaking in person to about 300 of them. Hopefully you won't have so many. But the great place and the key place to start is with Colonel Jeffrey Naff, who is the director of the Foreign Comparative Technology Program. And he is located in Arlington, Virginia. You have his phone and contact email there. I know him personally, and his total complete role is to make sure that the DoD purchases foreign products that have advantages over US products. And the reason for this is that saves the expensive R&D costs that the DoD would have to pay to qualifying and developing their own products. So it actually is a benefit to the DoD to purchase really good foreign products and foreign technology. And he and his team, Colonel Naff's team, will help you identify specifically the warfighters, requirements officers and budget holders, etc., who are really key to what I mentioned before, the operational needs and requirements that you need. So absolutely work with Colonel Naff, because that will save you absolutely thousands of hours of work to identify the right people. His team are geared up to do this. And if your product does line up with a DoD operation requirement that you've either created or identified, then you can likely be set up to win between 500 to 700K per year for 18 to 24 months to have that your product qualified to be used by the services that you work with. Ideally, your product will be useful to more than one service, and that gives it even more special emphasis to be funded by the FCT program. So looking at the chart of FCT's projects that have been funded, and I've been funded for 4 of them at a total of more than $10 million with my products. There are 36 countries who have been funded to have their products evaluated and procured by the US. Please note, Latvia is not on the list. Now, this is not necessarily a disadvantage, because I'm sure that Colonel Naff would like to increase the partnership to 37 countries and include Latvia. So I think you've actually got an advantage there, that he'd be keen to get a project or 2 from Latvia funded by the FCT. And if you look at the bottom of the line there, the investment that the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense has made in FCT since the early 1970s is $1.5 billion plus, and the procurement of 307 projects is over $11 billion. And that ratio of 11 billion to 1.5 is very important. If your project, however small it is, results in thousands or tens of thousands of in terms of the number procured and a very large procurement value, that is a great advantage and leverage in getting your project funded. So hopefully you're looking for projects where you get a huge payoff that benefits both you and also makes you more compelling for the FCT office. So here are the very specific and clear guys who work under Colonel Naff, who will specifically help you to identify the particular stakeholders for your project. And you can see that we've got the Army, the Navy, the Air Space Force, which is a new name for the Air Force, and Special Forces. So these guys, and I know many of them, are superbly helpful. And if you've got a specific service in mind, you can contact them first or go through Colonel Naff. But some are located at bases around the US, and so most of them are located here in Arlington, Virginia. So please make sure you contact them. The next thing is identifying your opportunities. And I was very pleased today that Rihards mentioned that he's going to go to Soft Week. I've been going to all of these shows for many decades, and Soft Week is the one show that you should go to, particularly if you've got a unique product that can be used standalone by a warfighter and its advanced system. Special Forces guys, they want the latest and the best, and they are set up as their own individual acquisition authority to purchase small numbers of equipment and use them fairly immediately, and you'll find the procurement process much quicker with the Special Forces who are headquartered in Tampa. All the services actually are covered under Special Forces. So you have the Navy, Air Force, Army, Marine Corps, all have components within Special Forces. So once your product is used by Special Forces, then that will be exposed to the other services. And if it's great product, then you'll get follow-on procurements individually by the services. So please go to these shows, but do focus on Soft Week. It's a very dynamic show. And if Origin have a booth there, I'm very impressed because there's a waiting line for booths. And it's great if they've been able to secure a great exhibit space. The other benefit of working with US SOCOM is they have what's called 3 technical experiments every year. And the technical experiments, TEs, that information is issued on the sam.gov website I mentioned, and they are fairly large umbrella, but you test at various sites in Florida very often, and you might have perhaps 60 to 80 technologies evaluated from all over the world, as well as US products, and the actual warfighters go there to evaluate them. So it's a great place to get direct exposure from the warfighter who really knows what they want and why they want it. So please do focus for the 5 reasons I've got underneath there on Special Forces initially, particularly if you've got a standalone product that an advanced hyper-enabled, as they call it, warrior might use. So we did speak about sam.gov. Now, sam.gov is the system for awards management, and this is the most important website that you need to know and get registered for. All the US government RFIs and RFPs are issued on this, and that includes for both military and commercial services, and it's critical that you get signed up for this. To get signed up for this, you need what's called a CAGE code, which is a contractor and government entity code, for which US companies can obtain one through sam.gov, but for which Latvian companies and other NATO companies would need an NCAGE, NATO company and government entity code, which is a different code, but will still give you access to the sam.gov site. So there is information I'm going to give to you how to do that. And these are some of the numbers and codes that you need to increase your credibility, so that when you fill in forms, and you will certainly be filling out a lot of forms for lots of reasons, you need to include these. So the first 2 codes are the PSC and NAICS codes, are for commercial or military products to give what kind of category they're in. And the government needs this because it likes to know on PSC codes what kind of products are being sold backwards and forwards, so it can do reports at top level. NAICS codes can affect whether you're funded as a small business to whatever level of people. For instance, in California, if you have the right NAICS code, you can be a small business with special privileges, even with over up to 1,000 employees. You need a DUNS number, which is the Data Universal Numbering System. That's international, so that your company can be tracked properly, and you can see that you're a proper company that's authorized to do business. The NCAGE code I mentioned there for the sam.gov site is shown how you get that. And then if you're setting up in the US, and I do recommend it, to have some entity set up formally here, you'd have a US EIN, which is employer identification number, and it also will be key to your forms. So this is all very tedious, but actually it's not too hard once you get into it, and these numbers are important. These codes are important. Next thing you've got to worry about a little bit, and more than a little bit necessarily, is the actual category that your product is in. Your product may be commercial, it may be dual use, as in certain drones, it may be military only. And if you're commercial and you're deemed to be dual use, then you will be working under the Department of Commerce, which has regulations called the EAR, the Export Administration Regulations. And there is something called the Commerce Control List, which shows you even commercial items originating in the US, and you might be originating some items in the US, will be controlled. And for military items, you have to work with ITAR, which is under the Department of State, and that's the International Traffic of Arms Regulations. Both these are rather important, particularly ITAR. And drones, foreign drones, unfortunately, in Category 8 of the ITAR regulations are deemed to be an ITAR regulated system. So you have to be careful when you're importing or exporting your drones from Latvia that you're covered. Apparently, there is a special dispensation from the Foreign Comparative Technology Program that you can import under their auspices hardware. I'm not directly familiar with that, but Colonel Naff did mention that at the conference in October. But otherwise, if you're permanently importing into the US, you fall under even yet another categorization, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms and Explosives. But if you're temporarily importing your drones or other hardware, you'll be working under ITAR. So do check that out, and it's very complicated, and you probably will need a consultant to make sure that you don't break the laws. If you break ITAR, it's a big deal, and it's very important, and it's got severe penalties. So let's look at best ways that we can demonstrate your product to subject matter experts, which is both experts and warfighters, to make sure that what you're providing is what they want. There's for commercial products to be transitioned into military products, there's a specialist unit for all services called the Defense Innovation Unit, and that's very high tech, very fast moving, fast funded program at the top. There's DARPA, which is more of a research. DARPA stands for the Defense Advanced Research Projects Association, and the agency rather, and that is very interested in the very high-tech drones that are military, and they're headquartered in Arlington. You can go meet them. The US Army has the Army Expeditionary Warfare Experiment that takes place at Fort Moore, which formerly was called Fort Benning down in Georgia. I've done a few experiments there myself, and I'm very pleased to note that the UAV factory, now called Edge, had some experiments there as well, and they were successful. So if you want direct experiences, you know who to speak to about that. There's the US SOCOM Special Forces technical experiments, and I mentioned those. There's 3 a year of those. And then there's also things called CRADAs, which are agreements where without funding for yourself, you get the opportunity to work on research and development with government agencies on making your product more aligned with their requirements. Now, one problem with all of these mechanisms here is that they're unfunded. That means that you'll have to put in your own funds for people to support these, and you have to provide your own hardware unfunded. So big problem on that, but if you're successful, it can result in the payoff of you getting an operational requirement, which is what you need. So just looking at the Latvian success here, the UAV factory did go through the US Army Expeditionary Warfare Experiment. It was successful, and Edge Autonomy took that over, and they got an order from the Army for that. So again, we've got a proven success here that's Latvian. Please do contact those guys and make sure you know what they did to be successful. It's great to have a Latvian success there on the books. So in conclusion, it's going to take you a commitment, resources and time for you to be successful with your product. It likely will take 3 to 5 years for a fairly straightforward product or technology, and a lot longer if it's complex, just because of the sheer bureaucratic process. But at the end of the day, for me and my company, it was absolutely worth it, because we've had huge sales, which started 11 years after I first started promoting the product. And it's all a result of having the right product in the right place and actually at the right time. And this is just something you're going to have to absorb, that it will take you a long time, but hopefully only 3 to 5 years to get your product into service. So in conclusion, I thank you very much indeed for your time, and I'm happy to take questions through Kristīne, if you have any for me. Thank you. Bye now.
Thanks, George. That was awesome. I appreciate you sharing that information. I was really impressed by your personal relationship with Jeffrey Neff. And so I was curious, from a Latvian company that's interested to explore that relationship and utilizing and being an added country for relationships on that map you shared. What do you recommend is kind of a ready to send information to Colonel Neff as far as introducing a company themselves, and what would be the first thing, before you even reach out to him, what needs to be ready?
Yeah, I think you need the compelling business case, and you need to be aware of the market space you're in. So ideally, what you would do is you would look at the products that are existing out there. You would look for why your product is better than those products are, both operationally, logistically, life cycle costs and safety, as I mentioned, and you prepare a pretty crisp point paper describing why you had a better widget or better product than what's out there already. And if there's competing products that are obvious in the marketplace, without necessarily specifically defining who they are, you may also just say that other products, even though they're competing for your same market space, aren't as good because of your very quantified benefits that you have for your product. And operational comes as number one, costs as number two, really, in the scheme of things. So just be very clear about why you've got a worthwhile product, and also be ready to perhaps give a Teams presentation with some technical specialists who are not going to go into fine detail, but give the big punchy top level picture as to why your product's better.
Thanks, George. I know this is a lot of information, and entering this type of work often can take a lot of time and, sometimes be discouraging. So if someone, after hearing your presentation and hearing the information we shared here today, walks away maybe a little bit overwhelmed with what's next, tomorrow morning, a business owner wakes up and thinks, okay, I'm going to make my first step in moving towards doing business with the US DoD. What is the first thing on their to-do list that they ought to do?
Well, I think they should consider whether they've got the resources and the type of product that could be standalone and that could be successful. And I think that UAV company did that, but at the end of the day, they converted to edge autonomy, and that was a huge thing where they could show they created US jobs through that. So certainly for our company, we had a standalone product that could be used directly by DoD. We had the resource to fund it, but at the end of the day, we had to transition to a US company as well. We have 600 employees in the UK and 60 in the US now. And it's very important for DoD to see that you're transitioning the technology or your product or the capability of manufacturing it into the US in the mid to long term. That'll give you a lot more drive that way. If you have a sort of subsystem or technology, you might be more advantaged by working with a US prime and let them do all the legwork. But recognize that if you work for a US prime, your profit margins will be lower, and they will control more of your destiny than you're doing. So it's a trade-off between whether you've got a standalone product or product that's best under an umbrella from a US prime, and you'll take more risk but get more reward if you can do it yourselves. But on the other hand, there's less risk and possibly still a good reward if you do it with the US prime.
Yeah.
Technika, I think, are a very good example where they've actually set up their own incorporated company in the US. So they've set up their own US company. They are able then to gather the profit without working through a prime, and they're optimizing that. But that's a serious commitment to set up a significant team in Denver to market to the US. So I congratulate them for taking that major step in doing that. But not many smaller companies could afford to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's lessons to be learned from both types of, proceedings. So I think that's one of the beautiful benefits that we have within the Latvian American Chamber of Commerce network is people. And as a business owner, you can hear various stories to really listen and learn about different paths, because no single path for a business has been alike. So I think that's something that I want to highlight. George has graciously offered to be of assistance and service, and I have his permission to share his email and his phone number. So if after this presentation you are interested to be connected with George, please reach out to info@latvianchamber.com and I will facilitate that connection. So we are really appreciative of George. I think your time and knowledge is so valuable. We had a similar discussion about how to do business with the U.S. government, not just with DoD, earlier in September in the mini Spotlight webinar series as well. So a lot of what George has highlighted does cross other departments. And so I think there's really good information there. Without further ado, I want to just thank all of our guests for joining today. And thanks, George, for hopping on and helping us conclude this webinar. We have really provided amazing opportunities to learn and connect and grow throughout this year and throughout the many Spotlight webinars that have been done before. So as I mentioned earlier, Spotlight Latvia, our flagship business conference, will take place October 15th through 16th. In Washington, D.C. So please save the date. We hope we see you there. And that focus will be all-encompassing security. If today's program has inspired you to pursue United States as your next business opportunity, or you want to learn more about Latvian business climate, please reach out to us. We're honored to be part of that network that is able to foster business connections across the globe. And we'd love to learn more about you and your business and how we can help. We are also encouraging you to follow along on our social media and our newsletter. We have a lot of really exciting things coming up next year. We'll be sharing more details right as we turn the page and launch into 2025. Thanks again to Latvian Investment and Development Agency and the Red Jackets, Latvian Exporter Association, for a wonderful partnership on these webinars. The last 10 have been terrific. And this concludes our official program for today. Thank you so much. We are so happy you joined us, and happy holidays.